Hello, today video is about pattern saga. It's very famous pattern, especially for microservice environment and distributed environment. It's uh, Probably you already know about this pattern, and because I have a lot of information about this pattern, and you can read about how it works and how to implement and a lot of examples in the internet. And but today I want to highlight some ideas which initially was introduced with this pattern a long years ago. And firstly, main information you can found in this page, for instance. Most part of information you can find here is a lot of description and diagrams, and you can find examples and other related information here. And but also I found another document, initial original scientific research according to this pattern, and I will try to highlight some ideas which was not reflected in the public, and maybe it will be interesting for you because in some cases, and you can find this document in internet, for instance, like this one. And I just make a couple of notes into these documents already, and we'll try to discuss them for now. Firstly, I would suggest before reading this paper, this scientific research, and it was made 35 years ago, and I would suggest you firstly to briefly understand how logs works inside the relational database like MySQL or PostgreSQL, because it's absolutely relates to this paper, because guys who prepare these papers had the model of these logs inside their mind before writing this paper, and probably it will for you it will be more comfortable to read this document if you also understand the concept of logs. And Elsa, second note, it's you probably it would be better to read before this paper some information about two-phase commit. It's also will be useful for you to understand how it's happened and what's going on before reading this paper. Actually, this paper is not so difficult. It's quite interesting to read. It's really small, 11 pages only, and uh, about my notes according to these documents, I just to highlight the notes which you will not found in the public internet, because they somehow was not revealed and does not extracted from this document, but it's really interesting, and I will try to express them briefly. And first of all, I said about the logs. Actually, when you say about sagas, it's probably Saga initially solved the task, the problem which relates to the logs in the databases, and they but transaction it's subsequences of the logs, because more problems with the transactions are related to the logs, and all of this paper is actually coding how to deal with the log problem, because what is important when you trying to create some transaction, you during transactions we try to load a lot of objects, and when you load these objects during from the database during active transaction, database put a logs on these objects, and this logs has two types, read and write. And this saga pattern suggests to fix this problem by splitting long transactions, long-lived transactions into a set of small nested transactions, which will be affects only little and few objects per transactions. And this idea, I mean, behind the saga pattern, and how saga pattern solves this problem. And another idea behind this document, that saga pattern can be applicable only for specific application, actually. And all receipt which you will find into this paper is also reflects to some special type of applications, like banking or insurance business, and so on. Okay, let's repeat one more time. That's saga pattern suggests you to split your actions inside database into a set of smaller actions to avoid multiple locking of objects. That's main idea of sagas. Each of these actions should be independent from each other, from business perspective. They should not be affect some business somehow, and they suggest couple of examples here. You can, one example with compensation you can find in this document, but I just highlight another example of application of saga, and this is they suggest example with compute interest on all accounts in your bank. For instance, for monthly computation or annual computation, and so on. For instance, probably these computations, I'm not sure, but probably these computations may may not affect the state of the database. I mean, if you run some query, SQL select query, which does not affect the state of database, but it will put locks on the object, I believe, because you need to calculate the computation, and you need to log the object when you're trying to compute something according to the account. And they suggest to split your transactions per account, and it's also treat like a saga. I mean, for instance, your saga may contain several steps, like this one. You select the list of your accounts, and after that you have some cycle which just iterates through all accounts and trying to compute some state of this account, and they suggest to split it into the separated transactions, which relates especially to each account, and this transaction, according to the business, is absolutely independent. And I mean, you also need to treat such a business process like a saga, because it will affect some logs in the database according to accounts, and you need to somehow to interleave these transactions, computation transactions, with other transactions which try to mutate the state of the account. Also, these documents suggest two kind of compensation actually. Usually you can meet backward compensations, but this paper suggests also and forward compensations, and you can read a little bit more about forward compensation in the document. Also, for better understanding what does it mean saga, if you previously worked with nested transaction, so saga it's very similar concept, but with two assumptions. I just trying to highlight this assumption because this assumptions means that saga may view the partial result of other saga. For us, it's important to understand that distributed transactions is not replaced by the sagas because saga does not meet ACID principles, ACID concept. Because saga does not have isolation for between each saga, and that's why distributed two-phase commit is not equivalent to sagas, and you need to take in account when you replace two-phase commit protocol with saga that it's not absolutely equivalent, and you may receive some side effects after replacement or splitting your monolith into the microservice. You need to take in account that isolation is disappeared when you introduce saga into your application. You need to handle it. I mean, you can live with it, but you need to handle it by introduce some business logic into your application code to avoid some side effects, and a couple of tricks and side effects which you may receive after introduce sagas. I mean, after introduce sagas instead of two-phase commit, you can read according to these tricks below. And what else? A lot of information about how to implement this saga pattern. Yes, and saga has, as I mentioned above, saga actually have two mode of recovery. It's backward recovery, as we usually know it as a compensation transaction, and forward recovery. And forward recovery has several tricks, and sometimes they suggest it, sometimes not to recover at all for business process which allow you to do this. For instance, in another ideas, implementation, parallel saga, design saga. Okay. This paragraph suggests us to this paragraph raises the question about how to determine how the nested transactions should be detailed, and how to split the business process into these transactions, and how they can be affect the business process. And authors suggest to correlate the business transactions, nested transactions of the saga with natural actions of the business process, and they described here one small example. In this case, with student who need to checking some bills, check some libraries, and check notebooks in libraries and other stuff for students, and each of these actions is separate nested transaction. Also, this paragraph is sum up about how to prepare your solution to use sagas. I mean, if you, for instance, trying to create some new microservice into your application, probably it will be better to think about how it will be work if your new microservice will be part of some saga. And they suggest to understand suggest to prepare some your microservice to work within some saga, because your microservice may be not only maybe part of several saga, and you should reveal the interface of your microservice to support saga workflow. I mean, according to small transaction and according to compensation transaction. You need to you need to build maybe set of API to support compensation transaction, and how you will deal with this compensation transaction inside your microservices. Also, they suggest some idea how to work with compensations and how to avoid a lot of logs, and this is they suggest to introduce some temporary data to avoid logs, and it's some suitable for some applications, and probably it will be another video about this approach, because actually this approach already be useful in some databases, and I will try to find a more suitable example for this idea, but you can read it in details here actually, but and try to understand how it works, how it may help you to in your application. Actually, I found that Saga Elsa the Saga term was introduced by Bruce Lindsay, and but this paper does not reveal what does it mean saga, it's aberration or something else. I only find this question about this, and some guy suggests this is explanation of this term, segregated access or global atomicity of term. And probably that's all according to saga-pattern. Maybe you find something useful for you, like I did it for myself, and please ask any question. Thanks for watching, bye.